Hello, this is MusicTechHelpGuy, and welcome to episode 11 of my Alchemy video tutorial series. In this episode, I'm going to show you guys how to take just a rough, sort of plucky sound and turn it into a cool, evolving, sort of echoing bell sound using the granular synthesis options in Alchemy. This is sort of like the direction that I'm going to go with the Alchemy series from here on out. I think I've taught you guys enough of the basics and the fundamentals in Alchemy. I think you guys know how to get around in Alchemy by now, as long as you've watched the first 10 parts of the series. I think you guys know that enough. I really don't want to beat the fundamentals anymore. What I want to do is I want to get into some cool sound design stuff and create some cool things and show you how to sort of incorporate some of those sound design elements in your music. So this is the first video where I'll be doing more of that and less of the fundamentals. All right, so to start, I have a few notes here I typed in with, actually, believe it or not, Sculpture, not with Alchemy. What I did is I took just the stock setting of Sculpture, turned the delay off, tweaked a couple little things, and I ended up with this. So I think you guys know where I'm going with this. I basically sampled or just played in every third note from C1 all the way up to C5 in Sculpture. And what we're going to do is we're going to right-click and go to Bounce and Join and go to Bounce in Place, or just press Control B. And we are going to bounce this MIDI region to audio clips. So now we have an audio clip. I'm just going to hide this. And what I'm going to do is right-click on my audio clip and go to Slice at Transient Markers. And now we have a bunch of individual audio files. I'm going to drag over all of these, right-click, and go to Export as audio files. I'm going to create a folder on the desktop called Sculpture Pluck Samples. There you go. I'm going to hit Save. And basically it's going to individually export each one of these clips as a separate sample file, so we can import each one of these into Alchemy. So on my desktop, I now have all these different individual sample files. Now, it doesn't really matter what they're named, because remember, in Alchemy can automatically detect the pitch of the sample that you drag into it, which is really cool. So let me just create a new instrument track. Throw Alchemy on there. We're going to go to File, Clear, because we want to start from scratch. Go to Advanced. Go to our first source here, Source A. Go to Import Audio. Go to the desktop where our folder is, Sculpture Pluck Samples. Select the top one. Hold Shift. Select the bottom one. This time, instead of importing it as a sampler mode, we're going to import it in granular mode. So I'm going to click on Granular. Mapping will be pitch, and we will hit Import. It'll take just a moment to import these in. And as long as it works the same way it did last time, it should automatically put each sample where it belongs. So let's go to Source A's individual window here. Click on Edit. And it looks like everything's mapped properly. Let me just play a few notes and make sure this is working okay. Cool, it looks like it's working okay. It's nothing special at the moment. The next thing I'm going to do is, just because I'm going to be using this as sort of like a bell-like ambient pad, there may be some notes that are sort of longer, 3-4 bars long. So I want to create loops. Even though this is more of a plucked instrument, we're going to turn it into something that's more like a pad. So what we're going to do is, the very first sample here, I'm going to go to loop mode, and I'm going to use the forward-back loop mode, which essentially lets you loop the sample forward then backward. So if I hit the key now, it's going to go to that last loop point and then loop backward. And it'll do that indefinitely. So what I'm going to do is just sort of set this down here somewhere. And I'm going to do this to every single sample file. One cool little thing I discovered with the loop range is if you grab it real quick, drag to the right and then to the left, it will automatically separate those two loop points. So you can get through this pretty quickly. I'm actually not even really paying much attention to where the loop range is because I want each loop range to essentially be a little bit different than the next. And I want that on purpose so that when we have a whole bunch of loop ranges looping at the same time, that all of the loop ranges aren't in the same point in the loop, which can sound kind of monotonous. I want it to sound sort of glassy and ambient sounding, and that's really what we're going for here. So let's try playing a few chords and see what this sounds like. Cool. Sorry you had to wait so long for that, but just the loop doesn't come in the sample until a lot further in. All right, cool. So that's kind of cool. Let's close that out. The next thing I'm going to do is go to my global options, and I'm going to click on my master fader. I'm going to make the main envelope release time be a little bit longer so that our notes ring out a little bit longer. And then I'm also going to pull the attack time up quite a bit. Actually, I'll pull the attack time up later. Let's do the granular stuff first, and then I'll show you what the rolling the attack time up does. So let's go back to source A, go to the granular tab, and there's really no point in trying to tell you exactly what each one of these knobs does. What I will tell you is that the two most important ones that you're going to hear the most effect from are the number of taps and the tap spacing. Now, before we even get into that, let me just, in brief, explain what granular synthesis is. Granular synthesis is the ability to take a piece, a grain, a small slice of a sample and repeat it at some point, or randomize it, or tap it in a repeating, echoing pattern. That's essentially what granular synthesis is. You can chop up audio and sort of move the grains around to make something more interesting. The granular options in Alchemy are not nearly as powerful as some of the granular options in other synthesizers, but it gives you enough to do things like this, do basic ambient sound design. Also, keep in mind, the more complex the material you put into the synthesizer, the more effect the granular synthesis is going to have upon it. So our samples here are pretty simple. So you're not going to hear a huge difference. You're not going to hear a whole lot of like little intricacies that you'd hear, say, like in a drum loop or something. All right. So what I'm going to do is I am going to choose a grain shape. The one I like is triangle. It's just, I believe that's just literally the shape of the grain, like the shape of the envelope of the grain. I'm going to pull the number of taps up to 8, and I'll just play what one tap sounds like. Doesn't really sound like anything. Let's pull this up. And we also hear those reverse taps from the reversal of the loop that we created. The tap spacing is essentially how close those echoes are going to be to the initial attack. If you put it at 0%, it's going to clip because basically all 8 of those taps are on top of each other. So as you pull this up, those taps will get further apart. So I'm going to pull that all the way up. I'm also going to pull the size up a touch, the density up a touch, the R pan up a bit. It tends to give us more of like a little bit of a panning effect. And that's all really I'm going to do with that. So let me play a few chords and see what this sounds like. Cool. It's really a lot like just like an echoing effect and like a reverb effect with echo on it. But we're gonna do a little bit something different with this. We're going to take the main volume and we're gonna pull up the attack time a bit because we want this to sound more like a pad, more like an ambient texture and less like an actual plucky sound. So notice that with the granular synthesis that the echoes, the taps aren't really affected by my attack time change here, but the overall sound is, the dry signal is, which is really cool. So we've got this sort of this smooth sort of glassy pad with these little glassy echoes after it. Another thing I'm going to do to this is I'm going to layer it with another synth. I'm going to layer this with, let's try Dark 2. Let's see what that sounds like. Let me just hear Dark 2 by itself. Let's try a different one. Let's try Drive Edge. I like that. And turn up the number of voices, detune it a bit. It's also going to roll in a low-pass filter, pull some of the high end out. And on this Drive Edge instrument, I'm going to modulate the volume with the sequencer. And one thing I do need to change is I need to change the tempo of the session from 30 BPM to 60 BPM. I only did that just because I wanted these notes, the notes that I sampled from before, to be longer. So my sequencer should play back a little faster now. Cool. I'm going to pull the gate down. I'm going to pull the attack time up so it's a little softer. And I'm also going to modulate the pan on this. So we'll add modulation with an LFO. For this one, I'm going to sync to, I think, a dotted 16th note. Sounded kind of cool. There you go. Let's try a different shape, though. Cool, I like that one. And let's layer that with our little glassy sound that we have. Let me just filter out a little bit more of that drive edge patch. Cool. Let's just play this R time a little bit. Just playing with a few things. Like I said, when we get to this point, it's sort of pointless to go through what every single one of these does and try to explain exactly what it does. I'd be pulling out the manual myself to try to figure out what it does. At this point, let's just focus on what it sounds like and what the overall sound we're going for is. All right, so let's try playing this and recording a little bit with it. What I did in advance is I sort of created this little down-tempo beat with just like a bass and ultra beat. I'll play it for you. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to play in a little chordal idea on top of this little down-tempo beat and see what it sounds like. There we go. So we've got this cool little glassy sound that we made. We can go in and quantize it, do whatever else we want with it. Try this out with some other samples. You know, try this out with you know, short clips of songs, drum loops. It sounds really cool with vocal samples. If you throw a vocal sample in there and play with the granulation of it, you can create some really cool morphed effects. It's nothing that's going to make or break your song, but it's something that may provide a really cool atmosphere, a really cool texture in the context of your song. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you like the video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. If you really, really like the channel and you'd really like to support the channel and also get our live video tutorial series up and going, please donate to our Patreon fund. It is patreon.com/MusicTechHelpGuy. So once again, thank you for the support and thanks for watching.